Hi, guys, it's Laura. Welcome to the That's Where I'm At podcast. Today, I'm really excited to have someone who has a really interesting story, and I want you guys to meet Jennifer. Hi, Jennifer. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Laura. Thank you so much for having me today.
So, I'm so glad you're here. I enjoyed our talk that when we talked the other day, and I would love everyone to hear your story. So, tell us who you are. Introduce yourself to us.
Okay. So I'm Jennifer Licciardi, also known as Jennifer Heart Healer. And my life has changed so drastically. I'm going to start from where I'm at today and we'll backtrack in a bit.
Yes,
But where I'm at today is, God's Spirit has guided me to do some pretty incredible things to help women from using the challenges I faced in my life, the pain, the suffering I endured in order to be able to lift other women up.
that's
So
amazing.
thank you. What I've created, I started with jenniferhearthealer.com, my
Uh-huh.
website, and working with women to help them to create the life that they desire by stopping people pleasing, building self confidence so that they can step into their highest personal power, find their voice. Then that has also led to very recently being guided to create two groups. One, because I faced so much narcissistic abuse in my life,
Hmm.
I created helping you to heal your heart after narcissistic abuse. And that is a group very near and dear to my heart on Facebook. A second group that I just created, and I'm so blessed to do this, is it's a women's empowerment network.
That's
So
awesome.
it's going to be speak from your heart, women rise up. So it's all about having women speak from their own hearts. That's how I healed, is opening my heart
That's
and
amazing.
finding my voice.
So
Yes,
I want to
yes,
talk about your story because
yes.
your groups are amazing and what you're doing
Thank
is
you.
amazing. And I think that, you know, we don't, people don't have to have a story like we have to want to better themselves. You might be stuck for, in other ways, right? People might be stuck in other ways and why they're not living their best life or living the life that they are imagining for themselves. So let's go back and talk about your background a little bit. Tell me about um, your upbringing.
Okay. At first, I just wanted to say, for since you just mentioned stuck, I was stuck for a very long time.
Yeah,
So, anyone, I'm no more special than any one of you.
right,
Anyone can rise and stand
right.
in their highest personal power.
Hmm.
Okay. So, my upbringing, I grew up, in a household with two parents who were married, a younger brother, 2.5 years younger. And I received a lot of love from my father. He would say, I love you. Um, we were close like that, but he traveled all the time. He was climbing the corporate ladder, taking these high positions, building these huge sales forces across the country. So he wasn't around a lot.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a lot of that male, influence in that way that
Right.
I believe I needed.
Uh-huh.
My mother was home with me. She was a math teacher at the time. And I never it took a very, very long time in my life to bond closely with my mother.
Mm.
I didn't feel accepted, understood, connected. And as young as 6 years old, I would create
Really?
these stories. And I've realized this recently. It blows my mind.
Hmm. Now, why do you think now, what are you thinking back on that you said you remembered this recently? What are you thinking back on that you think it was 6 years old?
Yeah, I just was so hard on myself. And I felt pressure to be a certain way, to
Mm.
fit in a certain way. And my mom just loved me, but she didn't say, I love you. I
Okay.
mean, she started saying that in the last like several years here and there, or at least typing love mom. But it took a really long time. And she was raised that way with her mother. So it's that learned behavior, that repeated cycle.
Yes.
And she loved me. She, I would say her love language was acts of service. And of course, as a kid, I didn't know that.
Right.
So she'd take care of me, and that was her way of showing love. But all I wanted to do was feel that love.
Right.
And I've talked to her about it over the years, and she understands. But it's all part of our journey, and it's all made me who I am today.
Right.
So,
And why do you feel like that you just didn't have that connection with your mom because of you feel like looking back now that you didn't get love in the way you were wanting it?
yes, my brother and my mother were very close. He couldn't do anything wrong. Like, he would
Oh,
get into trouble and he'd make my mom laugh, and she just like
oh
kind
my
of
God.
have to let things go. So it's kind of like,
Jeez.
why are you so close and why do I not have this relationship with my mother?
Right.
She just wanted me to be happy. She wanted what she thought was best for me. And I just created this wall with her at a
Hmm.
very young age, just feeling like I can't be what you want me to be. And I was just, there's this disconnect.
Yeah. That's too bad. So tell me how things are moved on from there, growing up. How did that, and I have to say, your dad, right? He's doing the same thing. The way he's showing love is supporting you guys, right? He has a
Yes.
good job and he's supporting you, and we can look back as adults and say, we appreciate that. But when you're a child and your dad's not there and you just want your dad to be there, that's kind of hard because I get it. My
Yeah.
parents worked opposite shifts, and it just was a matter of fact. That's what they had to do to survive.
Yeah, he missed my elementary school graduation, which is
Oh,
something I still remember to this day.
yeah,
And my mom, thought, well, this it's just elementary school. Like, it's not high school. It's not, he's
right.
there for all the really big moments. And to me, it was just like,
Yeah.
how is my father not here with me right now?
Well, and it's important. It was important to you at that time. It's not like you could say, "Well, he'll be there later," because
Yeah,
we don't know that. And that was important to you at that time. Yeah, I could see where that would be hard. I totally get it. There's certain things, right, that we go back
yeah.
on in our head, and when we do that, it seems to me that that means it was important to us and there's something unresolved there. That, I mean, do you find that to be true?
Yeah, I could see that.
Mhm.
Um, my father and he took some time off of work. He signed a non-compete when I was in high school. So he had a couple of years where he was consulting but wasn't allowed to take another, competing position.
Okay, okay.
And he taught me how to drive. He, I got to help him cook. And there's this role reversal with my parents. My mom took on more responsibility, becoming a facilitator at work on
Mhm.
top of her teaching job. And I really got to bond and connect with my father during that time. So that was really valuable for me.
That's really good.
Yeah,
So tell me how that kind of growing up environment, what that looked like for you did you go to college? How did it look like as you grew up?
I did. I was in three different high schools and two different colleges, all in
So
different states.
I want to talk about the three different high schools because I mean, we're
Sorry.
already feeling awkward and out of place as it is
Yeah.
just by being alive. So
Right.
how was that? And did you have friends
Oh.
that you feel like you could talk to, or did you have any modeling of any other kind of relationships?
I had a tough time growing up. I didn't want for anything financially,
Hmm.
but my other needs weren't met,
Yeah.
looking back. I would have like a best friend and my friend would move away. So it just kept
Oh,
happening. Like,
oh,
and it was really hard. And then the girls at school, in elementary school, were just ruthless. Like, they would just pick on me, and there's no reason. I mean, I look back at the pictures,
right,
I looked like everyone else.
right.
The only difference was is I just so desperately wanted to fit in.
Yes,
And that was something that people could pick up on.
yes.
And it was hard on me. I
Yeah.
really, I would get picked on by the girls, and no one did anything. Like, the
Mhm.
teachers didn't do anything. They talked to my mom, but like, no one knew what to do. It was just one of those situations. So I
Right.
just had to endure it. And then junior high, seventh and eighth grade, I was in so three of the local towns went to school together. So junior high was like going to high school almost.
Okay.
You're meeting all these new people, everything shifting around. And I just remember like being with there you could only have six people at a lunch table. And
Okay.
I was number seven. So
Uh,
even when I found, girls that I got along with,
yeah.
I was like the one that didn't get to sit there. And it was
Ugh,
terrible. Like
gosh.
I had such a hard time with all of that. And I
Yeah.
used to stay home from school a lot on a Thursday because it was a Thursday lunch. My mom was like, okay, you keep staying home on a Thursday. You're sick on a Thursday. What's going on?
Oh, okay. She picked up
Right?
on that. Oh my gosh.
No one fixed anything. I mean,
Right.
no one, I feel like nowadays they would have done more.
Yeah.
There would have been more flags. There was more knowledge on what's going on and
Right.
social media and on the news, everything.
Right. And it's hard because that to me is part of my personality too, where it's like nobody does anything. Nobody did anything. That's the kind of thing, even to this day, where that's something in me. It's kind of a justice kind of feeling, like I don't know. I mean, the world doesn't have to be fair, but it's like
Yeah.
sometimes you want to like fix stuff. You want to fix it.
I so connect with what you just said because when I want to help all these women,
Yeah, right.
I
There's a
want to make it
desire,
fair
right?
for them and help them
Right.
realize, wow, you can have the life you truly desire. Look at where I came from, who
Right,
I was.
exactly. And the thing is that unless we tell these stories, yes, we can all go, yeah, I was awkward in junior high. But until we tell these stories, you don't realize that, yeah, being number seven at a table where there's only room for six, that's just like there's only room for those people or whatever. That breaks your heart. If
Yeah.
you can imagine yourself as a 12-year-old, it breaks your heart. Um, so with high school too, you said you went to three different high schools?
Yeah, I was in public school in Massachusetts where I grew up. I
Okay.
got lost in the shuffle. So then I
Uh,
had the opportunity to go to private school in Rhode Island, one city over. Well, I mean, one state over, but it was
mhm.
only 30 minutes or so.
Uh-huh.
So I did that and I started to flourish academically. I started to realize I was capable of so much.
Yeah.
But now I'm in an environment and I'm a junior in high school and I don't know anybody and they have their own cliques and it just was tough.
Yeah.
Then we moved, my dad, it was time to get another job. We moved to outside Memphis, Tennessee to Germantown.
Hmm.
And I went to an all girls school my senior year, which was a trip.
I can't even
They
imagine.
measured your dresses or your skirts. It was
Oh,
like going back to the old days of
yes.
everything.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, all of it. The like all the work that you had to do academically, all the quizzes and tests every day. It was just a whole new experience. But I realized, wow, like I'm smart and capable of so much. Like let
Hmm.
me just kind of bury my head and get through it. And I
Right.
tried with the girls. They were fine. I just was so busy trying to keep my head above water to
Yeah.
finish out, high school.
Right. Yeah. It's hard. And I can look back and I had probably the same friends the whole time I went to the same high school because I think you get in that comfort zone that first day of school can be fun and can also be scary, right? you know
Yes, yes.
or even first day of a new job or anything like that when you have to new people and all that kind of stuff. So um how was that? How were your parents during that time, or did you make any friends, have any connections there?
I was accepted or included if I wanted to be kind of.
Uh-huh.
I wasn't exercised or you know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just there just wasn't a lot of time for it, having to
Right.
get into college and stuff.
Uh-huh. And so then where did you go to college, and how did that go? And
I
what did you
started
study
at
there?
Ithaca College in upstate
Uh-huh.
New York
Oh,
because
okay.
I figured, well, I didn't fit in at the time in the South. I grew up back east, so it was such a
Yeah.
difference for me at the time. And then I ended up, Ithaca for a year. I made really close friends. with a couple of the girls and then friends with others too.
Uh-huh.
But it was a good like bonding year to connect and learn more about myself and just experience living away from home,
Hmm.
away from my parents.
Right, exactly. Yes. How was that? How did you feel? And did you meet any other families or anything to say, oh, I don't know, to see friends who had other relationships with their mother, that
Yeah, it's
kind
a
of
good
thing?
question. I did. Got to go home with my roommate for Easter, and I got to
Mm,
see, the relationship with her parents. And then my friend across the hall, who is almost like a roommate,
uh-huh.
her parents came to visit a lot, so I got to spend a lot of time with them too. So it's good to understand the differences, and their parents took care of because they were both in upstate New York, their parents were.
Oh,
So they
okay.
were able to, you know, take care of all of us like that,
Hmm.
which was nice. So I was included. And my mom sent care packages all the time and talked to me all the time. And, I flew home when I could.
Yeah. That's nice. I remember in college, I didn't really get care packages. And I remember thinking back, I think
Aw.
about it all the times. I was, aware of that when my daughter went to college because I don't think my parents knew that that would be a big deal and that maybe that wasn't their thing or maybe they didn't have the
Yeah.
money, who knows. But I just remember thinking back, like the way you're thinking back on certain things. It's like, when my kids were in college, I'd be like, I'm sending a care package. I really wanted that. I don't know if they do, but I really wanted it. So, just
Yeah.
trying to heal that, trying to heal that inner child a little bit. So tell me about, you and I were talking about unhealthy relationships and emotional abuse, and talk to me about any relationships you had, wherever you'd like to start on that, or if
Yeah.
it was in college or wherever.
Yeah. So in college, so my sophomore year, I ended up going to University of the Pacific
Mm,
in Stockton, California, small
mm-hmm,
private school. My parents moved out to California. And so then I'd only be like an hour or so away. So
oh,
I could come home when I wanted on the weekend, that kind of
mm-hmm,
thing, get a home cooked meal. So that enticed me to come out here. And yeah, I had a lot of close guy friends. I had a guy friend in college at University of the Pacific. You're
hold on
okay.
1 second. Sorry, we can cut this part out. It's a mixed, like a powdery drink,
Aw,
and the powder went down my throat.
I know what that feels
And
like.
I'm like,
Yeah.
it's never happened before.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Okay,
That's
hold on a
okay.
second. Oh my goodness. Okay, well
Okay.
that's fun. Okay, so
Yeah.
sorry. So go back a little bit and start.
So I would have close guy friends, and I had one in particular who everybody thought we were, or we'd end up together.
Okay.
And he never kissed me anything, but he was my best friend. And we spent all the time together. It was like having a relationship, but nothing ever, happened. And so, he like treated me so much like you would treat a girlfriend. So it's
Yeah.
very, very confusing for me. So I
Oh,
know
I'm
this all
sure.
ties into my story.
Oh my
And then I had,
gosh. And
you
wait,
know,
I want to know, like,
yeah,
was he in Stockton or was he somebody you grew up with or?
no, he went to college with me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we went to college the last 3 years
Oh,
at
okay.
UOP. And yeah, just completely bonded like that. But I'm thinking, what's wrong with me? Like, why can't I have this relationship? Like,
Right.
this doesn't make sense. This guy looks at me this way. Everybody thinks we should be together. So this started my confusing, not understanding things. And then I had a couple other guy friends that they'd all like fight for my attention, at one point when they all got to know each other. And it was like, okay, so I'm the prize, but no one wants it
That's so
was
weird.
so confusing.
Yeah, I could see where it would be. I'm so sorry. My goodness.
Yeah, and I didn't have an example of anybody. Like I didn't have an older sister or anybody
Okay.
older in my life to learn from. So I was
Okay.
just doing things, figuring things out on my own. And then after college, my first boyfriend I had, he was getting over a 4-year relationship.
Mm.
And so he wasn't emotionally available.
Mhm.
So I wasn't being treated well, actually, that was my second boyfriend. I had one senior year of college, but
Okay.
we were just two different places, wasn't the right fit. Um, it's that whole, oh my gosh, I think you're so amazing. That initial, like you
Yeah.
both feel that way, and then you realize you have nothing in common.
Oh, right. Right.
So that was an interesting
Yeah.
experience. But
Yeah.
yeah, so my second boyfriend, the first one out of college, he and I was a late bloomer. I just didn't date until college, like
Hmm.
that, like senior year of college. I know that's a long time, but being in 3 high schools, it took me a long time to grow up.
Everybody does it at their own pace. I don't think there's any right or wrong, that's for sure.
Yeah. And I was the girl, guys would be like, oh, you're the girl that you marry, not date. And it's like, okay.
You're like, okay, so hello. Where's that guy?
So many mixed
You're like, I'm
messages.
waiting.
I know. I had so many mixed messages. Life was
Yeah.
was so confusing for me. And yeah, so back to the guy I dated right out of college. Yeah, he wasn't ready for any of that. He needed time to heal and grow, and
Yeah.
I took the brunt of it. So
Yeah.
I just wasn't treated well, and it was unfortunate. I mean, I had a friend of mine have to go get me, medicine because I was sick and I couldn't go get it myself.
Okay.
And he's like, oh, I'll do it later today. And
Oh,
he was like busy at work, but it's like, could leave and go get it and then bring it back to me.
right.
But that didn't happen. And I just stand up for myself and decide, hey, like, I'm not being treated well. I don't deserve this. I'm done
Right.
at the time, but unfortunately, it created a pattern of how I was to be treated,
Okay.
and it still amazes me how those patterns can be created so quickly. You
Yes.
just meet somebody else who's emotionally unavailable,
Right.
and he's not ready, and it just starts to like one after the other,
Hmm.
and I just wanted that love and acceptance so badly. I
Yeah.
just wanted to hear I love you.
Right.
And I know because I didn't get it from my mom.
Right.
I was choosing boys at the time
Yeah.
who
Right.
aren't emotionally available because I felt like my mother wasn't emotionally available to me. And partly that was true because she didn't know how to be, because she didn't learn how to be
Right.
from her mother.
And I can relate to that with just certain things. That's what I really wanted. My parents did tell me they love me, but in many ways, in what I'm learning now about myself as I'm talking to people like you, every time I talk to somebody new, it's like I have another therapy session because, well, because you and I talking just about emotional abuse and different things like that, and unhealthy relationships, and it's like there were so many similarities because um, the human mind is amazing, right? I mean, we have something that's unresolved somewhere in our childhood or in our past, and somehow our brain wants to fix it by, okay, well, this guy, when he tells me he loves me, I'll be healed, that kind of thing. And that's what
Mhm.
we think. And I don't know that we write that down and say, like, if I just, like you were saying, like, these patterns just happen. So if we can create the patterns of how to do it wrong, let's see if we can create the patterns of how to do it right.
Yes, I love that.
Right. So continue with your story, but you were um, talking about how you hadn't gotten that from your mom and maybe even your dad at some point, really, if he wasn't around, so
Yeah, my dad could say I love you all the
yeah,
time, but not being around too was
yeah,
hard because I didn't have that male attention. So I feel like I crave that male attention.
yes,
That's why I wanted to be in a relationship,
right. That makes sense.
feel wanted
Right. And
and
so
needed.
did you stay with that guy very long, or what was the situation with
No, I think it was like 6 months. And I just realized, I stood up for myself and that I just knew I didn't deserve to be treated that way. I got to the point where I was just like, yeah, this isn't okay.
him? Okay.
But, I definitely, so let's fast forward
Hmm.
to, let's see, where are we now?
Yeah.
So 2009, when I met my long-term boyfriend,
Uh-huh.
and at first he was so attentive and,
Hmm.
everything was amazing. We met over the holidays, and that's just a time that can bring you together. You get sucked into everything,
Yeah.
the romance of it,
Right. Seems magical.
magic of it.
You're giving each other gifts or spending time together at parties or whatever, right?
Yeah, yeah. We met each other's
Hmm.
families right away. And I just thought he lived in San Francisco. I lived in Sacramento. And I just, so for people that don't know, it's like 2 hours away
Hmm.
driving. And so it wasn't, we just got to spend all this time together up front. And it felt so right. He was building me up. He was I couldn't do anything wrong.
Right.
And I soon saw, it took time to actually see what was going on there, but I, was able to have that childlike nature with him and just, it came out of me. And, he really liked that. But in time, things shifted and he started to, um, well, let's go to, he wanted to live in Sacramento. So he thought he was going to create a life there,
Okay.
switch offices, all this stuff. But he loved his city so much. And I got so sucked into San Francisco life. I
Hmm.
loved all the things we did, walking around Golden Gate Park, just having all these amazing experiences.
Right.
And just, it just felt so good. And everything was an adventure that I hadn't experienced. I
Yeah.
hadn't created my own life. I was waiting for someone to come in, for that guy to fit into his life. And then
Wait, I'm gonna stop you.
you could stop
That
me.
is, that resonates with me. That
Yeah,
really does. You hadn't created your own life.
you
So you were
hadn't.
just waiting, right? You were just waiting for the guy who would bring you into his life, and then you would have a
Yeah,
life together. Oh God, that
I
one hit
know,
me
I'm
right in the
triggering
heart. How
you.
dare you? Oh my gosh, that resonated with me. I wonder if it'll resonate with anyone else. So,
And I don't even know why. I didn't see an example. I didn't
right.
see my parents create separate lives. They just
Okay.
did things together. They met
Hmm.
at 23 and 24.
Yeah.
I was born 4 years later, but I didn't see this whole different dynamic. They were each other's best friends. They like did all these things together all the time. It wasn't, oh, well, I'm going to go out with my girlfriends, and you go hang out with the guys. I never saw that growing up. They
Yeah.
had mutual friends. So it's so interesting when you look at this stuff and you're like, I just didn't get these experiences.
Right. Well, and
Yeah.
I think we look at life differently as, I'm looking at life differently as a 56-year-old than I would have as a 22-year-old,
Yeah.
of course. So we only know what we know at the time. And if we think, oh, well, this is the way I saw it done, so it must be the way it's done, if you don't know any other way,
Yeah.
it's so
Yeah.
interesting. And then I think for me, there was a need, a deep desire. Like, I want a life where someone loves me and I make a life with them and whatever. And so
Yeah.
thinking about making my own life, that didn't make sense to me. That wasn't even anything that really crossed my mind. I mean,
Glad to know I wasn't alone in that.
yeah, I mean, my goal was to be married by the time I left college, which is weird. But that was a goal. That's what I had my sights set on. At that time, a couple years ago, when I was in college, that was a thing. You
Yeah.
people, not like people getting married today more in their 30s. People were getting married in their 20s. And that was just the way it was. So I wasn't going to leave college and not be at
Yeah.
least engaged, like God, what am I going to be, a spinster? You know what I mean? That's really what I thought.
Yeah.
It's so ridiculous. So with this boyfriend, I mean, okay, look, it sounds great, doesn't it? But when you're spending so much time with somebody and everything's great and they're building you up, that's actually not, you got to be careful with that, because every single thing can't be perfect. That's actually a little bit of a red flag for something. They may not be being truthful, or their true personality hasn't come out. So I don't know how else to word that without sounding bitter.
You did a good job.
Hindsight. So
Yeah, and I didn't know what was coming at the time,
right.
but I just was being love bombed, and
Yes, exactly. So
I
what
felt so connected to him because he was
right.
making me feel good.
Right, exactly. And everything, if they are love bombing you, then everything is a connection. We have this, you have the same likes and all those kinds of things. How do you look back and thinking about what signs you ignored during that time, or even during the relationship?
Oh, yeah. I mean, a lot of stuff didn't come out for 9 months,
Mm,
but early on, there were little signs. Like he said, "Oh, why did you tell your parents that I was divorced? I don't want them to know that." And I'm thinking, looking back, well, oh boy, there's a reason you were insecure about that. You have all these insecurities.
okay.
And so that was a sign right away. You
And was
know,
that something that you ignored, or did you not even really think that was really a sign at all? Like,
I
was
had
a
no
red flag?
idea
Okay.
what
Yeah.
that was at the time. I said, my parents will just love and accept you. Like,
Right.
that's just how they are. You don't need to be worried about that.
And I'm curious to know if you can think back, did you feel bad about that you had told your parents when he said that to you?
Don't think it really bothered me at all. I'm
Okay.
not positive. I'm not
Yeah.
remembering that exact moment, but I don't remember any panic of letting
Hmm.
him down or anything because it seemed it was so minor. And
Okay.
that was he met them like in the first month. So it was really quick.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I met his family right away too with holiday stuff and getting invited to it.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I was in the honeymoon phase back then.
Right.
But yeah, the other signs, like not being able to make a decision, just this back and forth, everything was such a crisis. Like this shirt or that shirt, those shoes or those shoes. Like
Wow.
I just,
For you, a
for
crisis?
him,
Oh,
well, he
okay.
just trying to decide like what do I want? Like having to be perfect, trying to uphold this
Oh,
image.
okay. And that's something, okay, that's unusual, not unusual. I'm sorry, that's not what I meant to say. That's interesting that he would be acting like that. Did you think anything of it, or were you just encouraging him? You look good in this, or whatever?
And just encouraging typically, which just builds him up and makes him
Right,
feel good, so he's getting what he needs.
right.
And yeah, and then everything was about like his decision, staying in San Francisco, moving to Sacramento. Like what is the big what it's really up to him. Like he holds all the power in this.
Okay.
And I just really felt that. I was jealous of San Francisco. I'm like, seriously, like how is this place more important than I am?
Oh,
Like I don't even understand. I'm a
right.
person.
Right. Yeah, that is right. I can imagine how that would feel. Now, do you have any idea why he didn't want to come to Sacramento? Is it because there were too many of your friends or something, or?
No, I didn't have a lot of friends at the time
Okay.
here, but he just loved San Francisco. San Francisco is everything to him. Like
Okay.
he just held it in such high regard and looked down on Sacramento.
Yeah, okay.
And it's so expensive to buy a home in San
Yes.
Francisco. It's out of the price range, and you can buy something really nice here in Sacramento. So, but in any case, he decides it's like 9 months, and he decides that he is not going to move. He shows up at my house and he's making the effort to drive 2 hours. And usually I'm the one driving, I'm the one making all the effort.
Oh, okay.
And because San Francisco is so great, right? And I have some
Mhm.
customers out there in my medical sales job too. So yeah, I could spend some time out there as well and have that flexibility. But he's showing up. I'm holding my little dog, Chloe, and I'm pacing, and I can feel like, oh my gosh, he's going to break up with me. Like something's wrong. He's
Oh,
coming out here. And that's terrible, right? Like
right,
somebody making effort makes me think they're going to break up with me.
right.
Like that's just so unhealthy. But he shows up, and I'm just like, he's like, I can't move out here. Like I'm gonna stay in San Francisco. So I don't know what that means for us. So maybe this isn't gonna work out.
Oh my
And I
gosh.
just think in that moment, and I just said, okay, like I don't want to be with anybody who doesn't love me. And in that moment, he said, of course I love you. And I'm like,
Oh my gosh.
oh great. Now I'm sucked in because I heard what I wanted to hear all
Yeah.
this time. And
Yes.
nothing bad has happened yet. So I
Right.
haven't been in any of the abusive stuff yet.
Okay.
And so I just go with it. And I think, wow, like this guy loves me and we're going to build a life together.
Mhm.
So, oh man, just just looking back at that moment, but you
Yeah.
don't know what's going to happen.
No.
That was kind of your, hey, here's an out. Here, do you
Right.
want the out? And I didn't know, but I
Right. Of
needed to
course
learn the
not.
lesson. It was
Yeah.
all part of it. If it wasn't with him, it was going to be with someone else.
Right.
And so what I did was, yeah, but at that point, he was all in. And when he was all in, everything switched. All of a sudden, I was a reflection of him with everybody, an extension of him.
Okay.
And everything I did and said was looked at. So there's this huge change. And I all of a sudden, I couldn't do anything right.
Ugh.
And I'd be like just making pasta and broccoli and I'd be off by a minute and he'd just be upset. And I was like, what?
Right.
How am I living this life where I'm insecure? I can't do anything right. I'm being judged constantly.
So
I
I want to
can't even
ask
dust the
you,
house the way he wants me to dust it.
about that. So, because I can relate to that. But how do you think that you abandoned really who you were? Because how long did you allow that, or did you say, wait, this is odd? Because the hard part about emotional abuse is and especially gaslighting, that's what was happening, is the it's incremental and it's so like slight and subtle. They don't, because I know I've had some people say like, why didn't you just leave? And I'm like, I didn't even notice. Like I didn't even notice until I noticed it too much.
Yeah.
You know what I
They
mean?
ease in.
It
They
does. It
ease
just is
in.
part of your life. It's like this little thing. I just thought, oh, okay, well, he's being a jerk, but then they throw you a bone,
Yes.
right? Which is
Yeah.
what happened when he threw you that bone of, well, of course I love you, and you're like,
Yes.
yay.
Right? I know. And
Mhm.
then they do something nice for you and then make you
Yes,
feel good. And
right.
then all of a sudden, and then when it happens over and over and over, that's when I started to really see it so clearly.
Okay.
And it got to the point where it started happening like constantly. And it just was exhausting. And I was unhappy. I was depressed. All I wanted to do was people please because that was in my nature.
Right.
And being an empath,
Yeah.
I want to help people. I want to fix people. I
Right.
want to see the good in them.
Right. And when they give you that little bit, when they throw
Yeah.
you what, most people say is they throw you a bone, when they give you that tiny bit, man, that really feeds, especially for me. I'm the same way. That fed me to where I'd be like, okay, there's hope, you know, but I didn't realize I was living off of crumbs. You know what I mean? It's like
Yes.
that's what I didn't realize. And it sounds like that's what you were noticing as well.
Yeah. And I didn't want to, and then the controlling behavior started.
Yeah.
So, just with what I'm wearing, what I'm doing, who
Okay.
I'm spending time with. And it just, I started to see things, but he wasn't physically abusive. And you
Hmm.
have to remember back then, this is now like 2010 or so. It's not, there's nothing to tell me what this was other
Yeah.
than unhealthy. I
Right.
didn't know. I hadn't seen anyone go through it.
Right.
There was no social media, like
Right.
having stuff all the time.
Right.
So I just didn't know. I just kept going forward and I didn't know who to talk to about anything. So
Right.
I just like suffered through it. And it just, with the end goal of, you know, ending up getting married and having kids
Right.
and,
Because
just believe that it
that'll
would
fix
shift,
everything, and
right?
yeah, it will shift and that'll fix everything. And it's so true. That's one of the reasons why, and sounds like your heart as well, why getting the word out. Because look, I'm 56, so I didn't even know the word narcissist until a couple years ago, and I was like, oh, whoa, that's what's happening. And because of it's just didn't come in my it didn't just come it didn't cross my path.
Yeah.
And because I always say that I saw it when it was time for me to see it, when it was time for me to know.
Yes.
Because I have friends who have been with narcissists in the past, and they've said to me, well, I noticed something, but I don't think you would have been receptive.
Right.
And so, what did it look like for you? What were your reasons to really to go? What were, because you still had that goal in mind. You're like, well, things will shift once we get married and have kids.
Yeah. I mean, it's just the yelling,
Hmm.
knocking me down a peg or two or three all the time.
Okay.
Just the emotional abuse, the psychological abuse of all of
Right.
it.
Right.
Just started to realize, I can't live like this.
Right.
And there were a couple of things. One was my my little dog, Chloe, the little 6-pound Maltese poodle mix.
Yeah.
And I got her while I was dating him. And he had said, "Oh, you need to get a dog." But apparently I picked out the wrong one. I don't know.
Of course.
I
We
did
always do the wrong
always
thing.
do the wrong thing,
It's
right?
always the wrong one.
So eventually I learned this, right? But in any case, Chloe was the vehicle for me to really see his true colors to the point where I would walk away. She got attacked by a Rottweiler.
Oh my
We
gosh.
were visiting his parents out in, you know, the country in Coloma. And this guy yells, "Pick up your dogs, pick up your dogs." And so I pick Chloe up, but I'm only
Oh,
5'4" and I'm in sneakers. So I don't have a lot of height to me there.
right.
And he picks up his little dog and he turns his back holding his dog. So I am here to fend for myself. The Rottweiler pulls Chloe out of my arms by
Oh,
the foot onto the ground. My little beautiful white dog, who was
oh
just
my.
recently groomed, little yellow bow in her hair still. She's on the ground crawling like to get away. And this guy got the dog under control and other people did help after. But my boyfriend at the time walks over, picks Chloe up, seeing her foot bloody and dangling, and he lashes out at me. He is yelling at me in front of all these spectators
Oh my
and
gosh.
he's saying, "Why didn't you pick her up? How could you not pick her up?" And people are saying she picked her up. She was holding the
Oh
little
my
dog.
gosh.
And he was so angry at himself. He felt guilty for what happened. But we're going to find his parents. We rush her to the emergency vet. It's Memorial Day.
Hmm.
And so, of course, this is not great with the holiday here.
Right.
But the emergency vet cleaned her up and then we rushed her, about an hour down to UC Davis. And they're just a renowned veterinary hospital. And I'm crying hysterically. This is my child to
Right.
me.
Right.
I mean, we bond so quickly. I had her since she was 8 weeks old and
Oh, yeah.
was so attached. And she was almost one. And it's amazing how quickly you can fall in love with these little guys.
Hmm.
But,
Yes, it is.
and I had an option, with the vet. They're like, "Well, do you want to remove her foot or do you want to save it?" And I was like, "I want to save it. She's likes to dance on her hind legs. Like,
Right.
I don't want to do that to her." So they had to wait and do surgery when she was strong enough. And they took such good care of her, but she was stuck there in the vet hospital on her birthday, her first birthday. So I
Oh,
felt bad about that,
yeah.
sad. But they took good care of her. And then in the end, they put the pins in her foot like you would a human, wrapped it, did all the stuff. So I got to see his true colors because he was jealous of the dog. The dog's
Oh,
schedule, everything revolved around Chloe now. And I got to see what it would be like to have children
oh,
and see what this dynamic would be like. I believe even if they were his children, there'd still be this like, hey, pay attention to me too. Like,
yeah.
I understood that. And he was just, he wasn't helping like he could have been or should have been. My dad stepped in a lot. I was home a lot to deal with everything. And
Hmm.
work was taking off. I was in medical sales in the hospitals. My confidence was growing a lot. I was starting to come into being a superstar there. So it's just what I needed at the time. And then the other piece was, oh, and so at the end, he said, and this was, what was it, like early 2012, he said to me, if you, oh, he's like, now that Chloe's all better finally, we should give her to your parents. And I was like, what? You want to give
What?
my baby, my child away after everything? He's like, yeah, we have my dog. We don't need her too. And I was like,
Oh my God.
no, I'm not living this way. And then a friend of
Wow.
mine also said to me, she's like, one day you are going to be so miserable in the future if you marry this guy and have kids with him that you're going to wake up one morning and you're going to want to blow your pretty little brains out.
Wow.
And I just cried and cried and cried.
Now, did you cry because that resonated with you or what?
Yes, yes, it
Oh my,
resonated with me.
telling you. I just don't think people realize, you and I had talked about this, that I wanted to check myself into a mental institution or somehow die. I didn't plan a suicide, but I wanted to
Yeah.
die because I was so sad. I didn't know what was going on. It's like that's no way to live.
No, it's no way to live. And I can relate. I mean, I used to drive back to Sacramento and I would, before I moved in with him, we only lived together for a few months before I got out. But,
Hmm.
um, and I just had moments where I was crying so hard. I was just like, I'm just like, I, I just don't want to live anymore. Like,
Hmm.
I'm
Yeah,
not going to try anything or do anything, but like, I just don't want to even be here anymore.
right.
I was so sad. I'm like, if I get in a car accident and I die, like maybe that would be for the best. Like, who would miss me?
Right.
And I realized at that point too, I haven't built this life, for myself. Like, I've been in this position. Why have I done this to myself? And, I decided I was ready to get out. And I just did. He didn't believe that I was going to leave. And I was, setting everything up to go.
Yeah.
And he'd tell me, oh, you're going to end up with some blue collar guy in Sacramento. Like, you're not going to meet anybody like me. And it's like, I was making good money. I could take care of myself. I've always been
Yeah.
able to take care of myself. So that was never the connection or need with
Hmm.
that. My parents really raised me to be self-sufficient like that.
Uh-huh.
But
I
I
just
just,
think it's funny when they say like you'll never have anyone like me and I think back and go, God, I hope not.
right,
I hope
right.
not. Thank you.
Yeah. So I finally, left after living with him for a few months. And I'd been moving my stuff out little by little, but he didn't pay attention because he was focused on him.
Oh my gosh, really? Okay, and now did you feel unsafe? Is that why you were doing it like that or you were just not brave enough to say I'm leaving or whatever?
I just wanted to feel like as much of it that was out of there, like I made this decision, I'm going to start moving stuff out
Yeah.
so that it's not this huge deal. Because I didn't have my stuff in his closet. I had a closet in the office guest room
Okay.
instead. So he didn't know, like he wasn't checking that.
Oh, right.
And certain things he didn't pay attention to.
Right.
So, and then my dad came and he helped me move like my bigger stuff. And that was the day. But I told him I was moving out. He didn't believe me. He came home and it was gone. So he called me. He spent like 8 weeks begging for me back, calling my parents. like
Oh my
everything. I
gosh.
had stuff of mine at his parents' house because I had moved. He had thrown away a bunch of my stuff
Ugh,
when I had moved in with him, like anything to control me.
yeah.
And I just knew like I didn't um I just knew I was out. Like I wasn't going back. And I
Well,
felt so free.
I want to talk to you about that 8 week time because just learning about, going no contact.
Yeah.
So that is a thing that is really it's advised when you're leaving an emotionally abusive relationship or really any abusive relationship. Um, but I didn't know that that was like a thing. You know what I mean? Like people say, like I learning a lot more about emotional abuse and stuff, and they say go no contact, and I'm like, okay, I just went no contact because I didn't want to watch my ex husband end up with the girl he's with now.
Yeah.
And so that's I told him I said I'm not going to talk to you anymore or whatever, and I'm going to block you on social media. Which in his mind he's probably going great that I can just do whatever I want. but but talk to me about what did that look like for you? Did you respond to him and was he texting you? What was he doing?
I didn't respond for 8 weeks.
Okay,
Like
that's
I didn't
awesome.
even respond for that long. I
So,
just,
did you
yeah.
feel like was it tempting? What did you do? Did you have a rubber band on your wrist and you snapped it when he, if you felt tempted? What did you do?
So really surprisingly, I was creating my own life during
Mm,
that time. I finally realized, hey, I'm free. Like I'm gonna go wear what I want to wear. I'm gonna go get new makeup.
yes. Yes.
I'm gonna go do whatever I want to do.
Yeah.
And I joined Women's Junior League and made really close friends, and I'm still friends with today for
Oh,
some of them.
that's awesome.
And then I joined this women's 30 something group that was a meetup too. And there are women right in my neighborhood that I had moved into when I moved back to Sacramento. I had sold my condo. So that was part of the complication too. I did a short sale, on my
Okay.
condo before. And so I had to finalize a few things before I could get out of my
Hmm.
relationship. But
Right.
it all worked out. And I was just doing all these fun things. So all I wanted to do was play and enjoy my
Yes.
life.
Yes. So you had that desire, right? Because you were at that
Yeah.
point, you were thinking about, okay, I want to start building the life I want. I remember having those feelings of like, he never wanted me to do this. And so I went and did it. You know what I mean? And it's just something that it's just a way almost to see like my therapist said to me, say yes to a lot of good things.
Yeah.
She said, don't say yes to a bunch of bad things. Say yes to a bunch of good things to see, so I tried pickleball and I did this thing and I did that thing and it was great because I'm like, "Oh, this is what it looks like. This is enjoyable to me. I like this or I'm going to wear
Yeah.
this thing or whatever." One of the things that I can't I'm trying to think of what you said. Oh, shoot. Let me think about it. Hold on. I'll have to cut it out because you said something about, oh, it's going to come back to me. Dang it. Oh, I remember. You were saying something about the things that you were trying and that you liked and whatever. And I remember, and you said about your short sale, right? It
Yeah.
all ended up. Let me tell you what I thought of when you said that. Because I had to move in with my brother, okay? Because I was a stay at home mom. And even at that time, all my kids are grown, but I was just doing things. He just left me in a position where I didn't end up with a lot of stuff, okay? And
Mm.
that's okay. And you know what's okay about that is that I'm not with him.
Yes,
and
exactly.
and so if you think about that it was a pain to short sale your condo or whatever, you know what? That's okay, right? It's better than having to be in the position you were in.
Oh yeah, it worked out. I mean, I didn't want to move in with him. I short sold my condo and I needed to do that because everything was going downhill
Right.
with a lot of people moving in and whatnot. A lot of investors were just buying up properties.
Right.
So it was turning into subsidized housing and I didn't feel safe back in Sacramento. So when I sold that, the short sale ended up, you know, working out. But I knew I should have moved in with him, but that train was already moving forward.
Well, that's
So
okay. And so
yeah.
so what happened after 8 weeks? You said you didn't respond for 8
Yeah.
weeks.
So I felt confident. building myself up
Mm-hmm.
and really like, okay, well, maybe now that I have my own life, like I can handle him. I
Oh,
at least
okay.
want to sit down with him and I want to explain. There's an empath in me, the caring person.
Oh, okay.
I did that in all my past relationships over the years. I was like knew what they needed, and even if I didn't understand it, I just the words came out.
Right.
And so yeah, I told him, and he who knows how much he really picked up. It's always hard to know.
Yeah.
And then, we were friends for a little bit.
Okay.
We tried this platonic friendship and he was trying to win me back. Dog present for Chloe, flowers for me,
Okay.
all the stuff, and saying, oh, well, I'm going to buy a house in Sacramento and
Oh
then
my
I'm going to
gosh.
buy you a diamond and we're going to do all of this. And
Oh
it's
no.
like, right. And I'm like, this isn't what I want. And,
Right.
I was just testing the waters for a little bit to just see, like, now that I'm this new person,
Right.
what does this look like?
Right.
And that made it clear to me so that when I was 100%, like, I don't ever want you in my life again, I knew.
Yeah.
And just the way he spoke with me, like, he just would go back to old behavior.
Mm.
And he even acted out in front of his parents, and his parents would scold him in front of me.
Wow.
Yeah, so, like, there are moments that he was just disrespectful, and they just be like, "What are you saying? Like, you shouldn't talk to her like that." And but so there were signs like that, and in the end, I just didn't care. It wasn't the life I wanted,
Right.
throwing the whole dangling the engagement ring in front of me, even when we
Yeah.
were together, telling people we were engaged, looking at houses. It's like, "What?" It's so
Seriously?
crazy.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh, he was doing that.
yeah,
And it's interesting that you said you wanted to see if you could, quote unquote, handle him in this new mindset you had. And so I think that's really good that you tried. It's I don't know if that's for everybody, but
yeah,
I think it's really interesting because I have another friend who did that as well, and then kicked him back out because he didn't change because um, especially when we're changing, right? And if we're getting stronger and healthier mentally, we're definitely not, this definitely is not going to align with what we want in our
right.
life, that disrespect or whatever. So, and so did you feel like it gave you some strength?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
did you feel like a strong, confident woman?
Yes, it really did. It really helped with all of that. And then I was just 100% sure. I knew that it wasn't me,
Yeah,
and it wasn't the right fit and all of that. But it wasn't because I was weak or I didn't have this in my life or I
right,
wasn't strong enough in, having created my own life kind of thing.
right.
So that was huge. But in the end, and I kept it platonic too,
Uh-huh.
so that I could see clearly, because that was very important
Yes.
to me.
That's very important because, man, our hormones and dopamine and everything else goes crazy if we don't have it be platonic. That's for sure.
Yes. And then I won President's Club. So I won that year for 2012, and I was one of the top reps in the country
That's
for a big
awesome.
medical sales company. And so that was great. So my confidence was building that way. But
Hmm.
when he called and I was getting that award, he said, "Oh, sweetie, I'm congratulations. It's so nice to know you can win and not work very hard." And
Oh,
I was just like, basically, F you. Like, I'm
oh
done.
my
I
God.
am done. I
Ah.
never want to talk to you again. That's so disrespectful.
Yeah,
I'm 100% done with you. Never call me again. And that was it. He never called me again.
that is, oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
I worked my ass off for that.
Well, and you don't have to justify yourself. It doesn't
No,
matter. And that's the thing is it
no,
doesn't matter if you worked or you didn't work. He doesn't need to say something like that. Oh
no,
my geez. That's not really a supportive person. That is for sure.
no, it's not.
So
But
from
he made
there,
it
what,
clear.
I'm sorry, say it again.
That made it clear.
Yes.
Crystal
It's
clear.
it's so very nice when they can make it crystal clear and you can just go, okay, bye. I'm so glad that you said, okay, I'm out. This was very clear. And I think, staying platonic, like we just talked about, that
Yeah.
really helps with the clarity, because everything else can really mess up our vision. That's for sure. So tell me, what happened since then? Like, I know, one of the things we talked about was you kind of had a spiritual awakening that really got you to the point where you are doing the work you're doing now.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go back one step.
Sure.
So after that relationship, I ended up, I called it emotionally abusive relationship back then.
Hmm.
I had a relationship coach showed up in my life
Oh,
and just met through a friend, and she was saying, "Oh, I need to work with you." And I'm like, "Okay, I know, I feel like I do for some reason."
right.
And sure enough, so the first time she says to me, and I waited till I built myself up. I had to create a life on the outside first so that I could do the inner work. And so I did that. And she ended up saying to me, "You chose this relationship. You
Wow.
know, you are not the victim here."
Okay.
And so she
Were
said,
you
"You have
feeling like the
self-esteem
victim?
issues."
I'm sorry, were you
Yes.
feeling like the victim? Okay, I'm sorry. And then I talked over
Yeah.
you. So what did
That's
you
okay.
just
You have self-esteem issues.
Oh,
And that was like a lot to hear at once.
right.
And she was right. And I had to sit there and be like, "Okay, I'm ready to hear this. Like,
Hmm.
I am at fault too. Like, I have to hold myself accountable." And wow, like that was a big wake up call. She
Right.
helped me heal my inner child at that point, would realize that it was because I didn't love myself, because I hated that little child within me. I blamed her for everything bad that ever happened.
Mm-hmm.
And once I started loving her, which actually happened pretty quickly, I know she had some healing abilities and whatnot too. And I didn't know
Mm-hmm.
it at the time. But yeah, so I was able to all of a sudden love this inner child, to heal, to be happier in my life. And once I grew that self love, I was able to move forward in my life. And I spent a lot of time single because I thought, hey, I love myself now. I don't want anyone coming in and messing with that.
Right.
Like, I'm
Right.
just going to focus on me. And I spent
Yes.
a lot of years doing that, focusing on growing.
That that's really resonating with me because it hasn't been quite a year that we decided to get a divorce. Oh, just about a year. And I am just I don't even want to date anybody right now because I'm still
Yeah.
doing so much healing. Look, I've been doing therapy for a long time. That's how I ended up seeing what I saw and then really getting out of the marriage, but I'm still in such a healing place. So okay, so that's good to hear. I hear that from other people too, that they took a long time to really take time for themselves. And because I don't even feel like I would have the energy to give to anyone else right now. I feel like I'm just giving it to, like you said, my inner child. Every time something comes up, I'm like, okay, let me address this. Let me look at that. Let me, think about those things and work through those things so that I'm a better me.
Yeah. And in the meantime, I threw myself into work, which I later learned is a coping mechanism.
Okay. Yes.
I became quite the workaholic, a superstar, and I paid the price. I wasn't focusing on self-care.
Okay.
I wasn't putting myself first ever. And it was just always, how can I help people? How can I, like, take care of these hospitals?
Yeah.
And I thought it was such a important piece,
Right.
being able to help protect healthcare workers, help
Hmm.
protect patients, doing something important.
Right.
And so I just dedicated time to that. And in the end, I learned my company, it doesn't matter how amazing a person you are at your job, they will treat you like crap
Oh,
when when in time.
yeah.
So it was take, and
Hmm.
bleed me dry. And eventually I was getting really run down. I had a couple of wake up calls. I ended up, was it I think 2018, I had a really tough experience where I needed a vacation, and I just spent a few months, like, I'd taken care of other people all the time. I like
Mm-hmm.
saved business for a huge hospital system when a rep was on maternity leave. Like, I bend over backwards for everybody. And then when it came down to it, no one was for me. And I was yelling at my manager in the month of December, completely cracking because there's a problem in one of the hospitals where they weren't using the product correctly. And it was a very, tough time.
Mm-hmm.
He really needed to hold their hand, and I had nothing left to give. And I had
Oh
vacation
my
time
gosh.
coming up.
Yes. Uh-huh.
So my manager, I'm yelling at him. I had him for quite a few years. And I'm just like, I'm cracking right now. I'm asking for help. He's like, I can't ask anybody else to go in here. It's December.
Oh
And I'm
my
like, I
gosh.
have 2 weeks off here. And he's like, well, if you can just hold on a little bit longer. I couldn't. I had nothing left. I
Mm-hmm.
spent, Christmas time, like the day after Christmas, I was doing a leadership call with one of the hospital systems. And I was in between vomiting because my stress level had gotten so high
Oh
that
my
that was my
gosh.
body's reaction. And I thought to
Right.
myself in this moment, how am I laying in bed in this with my eyes closed, taking a leadership call? Where do I draw the line?
You're right.
And my mom took me to urgent care that day because I'd been vomiting for 16 hours straight, couldn't keep water down. And I knew like something was wrong, that I had hit my breaking point. I go in, and this woman knows, I'm sure God guided her to me, who used to be in medical sales and ended up, being, a nurse now. And she
Uh-huh.
said, oh, it's stress. I was like, how can it be stress?
Wow.
How can you know it's stress? Like,
Right.
they had to give me Zofran to put under my tongue to stop the nausea. And then I had to go on some, what was it? I had to go on some medication too
Mm-hmm.
to, calm everything down. And I couldn't eat anything, and I'm small already. So, like, I was eating crackers or toast for, a while, and I couldn't
Mm-hmm.
even eat a piece of a cookie for like 6 weeks. And this is what I did to myself. Like, this was a
Right.
big wake up call, but it wasn't even big enough. Like,
Wow.
yeah, yeah, unfortunately.
That's okay. We've all been there. I get it. I know many of us have. So I totally get it. So what happened? What happened
Yeah,
next?
I started opening my eyes to things. And then fast forward to 2019, my company had gone through an acquisition, and they were huge, but they acquired another company, and their leadership came in and took over my business unit. So I got a manager in there, and everybody who was protecting me in the company before for the executives left or retired. So I was just a sitting duck. I had a manager come in. I wouldn't do unethical things. I put my foot down, and he made up fake customer complaints about me
Oh
to
my
push me out.
gosh.
I
Jeez.
fought with HR, and I took a leave of absence. And in that time, I realized there's more to life. So that was my first big, there's more to life. Like, why am I doing this to myself? And I got guided along to the right places with some more lessons, but ultimately, everything had to happen the way it did.
Right.
And we can move to what was it? Also, so 2021, I opened my heart again, which ties to my spiritual awakening.
Okay.
So, um, yeah, that was powerful. I was guided to this husband and wife relationship coach team, and it helped me be confident to put myself back out there.
Uh-huh.
So right away I met somebody, and it just seemed to fit, and things went very quickly. But I had this support and guidance. I was doing one-on-one coaching too at the time with one of them. So I met his kids really quickly. We met each other's families fast. And we were in Paris 3 months in on a vacation, the two of us.
Wow.
So, and we fell in love, and it was incredible. I felt like, wow, I finally heard, and I've barely heard I love you in my relationships over the years. Even in like a 3+ year relationship, it's crazy. But
Right.
now I'm hearing it more times in a row than I've heard like ever.
Right.
So so I felt good. I felt safe. I felt loved. I felt protected. A few weeks later, the holidays were hitting and he went in a panic.
Oh.
He'd been divorced twice, thought he did all this healing work, still had a lot to do, and had kids. I was very, very attached to his 3-year-old daughter and vice versa from day one.
Mm,
So, but he was starting to panic, like, where are we going? What's happening? And it's like, it takes time to get there. Like, you don't have to have it all figured out now. We're like 4 months in, but he just started shutting down and I panicked. My relationship coach guided me through it. Just said to keep leaning in. And I thought, how am I going to lean in when he's pulling back?
yeah.
But that's what I needed to do. So I did it. And I had to keep sharing more of myself. My boyfriend at the time wanted to see more of me, get to really know me at that deeper level. But
Okay.
as I opened up and shared that, as hard as it was for me, and it was scary,
Yeah.
it was really scary to open up. I also thought at the time that I wasn't interesting, like I was boring, like he didn't have a lot to share. I
Uh-huh.
don't know why I thought that,
Okay.
right? Right? But you don't know what people's life experiences are, how
Right.
they differ from yours in that sense.
Right.
But so in any case, I just kept opening up and my heart just felt, I just was anxious all the time. And it turned out that I was unlocking, that I had the key and I was unlocking my own heart at this
Wow.
level I had never been. And I started pouring words, just words poured out of my heart. And I just knew what to write. And I'd text him these messages and I was like, whoa, where's that coming from? I was
Wow.
speaking from my heart. I started channeling, but I didn't even know what channeling was yet. Like I just
Uh-huh.
wasn't exposed to any of that. And so it was powerful. And then my relationship coach taught me how to live in my authenticity. And that was new for me too, like
And what
not
did that,
hiding parts of me.
yeah, so what did that look like? Not hiding, you said not hiding parts of you?
Yeah, just showing who I was, being able to be emotional in front of him, sharing my
Okay.
childhood.
Mm-hmm.
And I shared my childhood with him and he asked questions. And it's kind of like you don't know how you want to be supported in that moment, but when
Right.
someone's asking to understand, it feels a little accusatory at the same time. It's kind
Right.
of uncomfortable place to be, but he's also hugging me at least. So, um, but it didn't feel right. Something felt off
Okay.
as because he wasn't opening up and we just didn't connect. His love languages were acts of service. So he'd do nice things for me.
Okay.
And we both had touch, but my others, words of affirmation, like quality time are close together. So I need to hear it.
Yeah.
And so that's where that disconnect, was too. But he broke up with me the week before Christmas, and that was so hard.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I knew he was coming over and I could feel it.
Yeah.
And my relationship coach told me, keep your heart open. He's like, he said, don't, he's like, just dip into your grief. So if you dip into your grief, you will, but don't make it your home.
Okay.
So or else, I'm going to close off again. And
Okay.
that made sense. And so
Yeah.
that's what I did. I just journaled like crazy. I'd never journaled like that before. And I just got everything out all the time, getting that mental chatter to stop. And right after New Year's, I was talking to my relationship coach again, and he said, just ask God, ask the universe for what you want. And I thought, okay. He's like, just scream it out loud. And I was like, okay. And what I deserve too, like screaming out loud.
Yeah.
And then so I was asking for peace, love, and joy. And one day I was like, I think later that day, beginning of January, I was crying in the shower, like so upset. And
Yeah.
I just begged again for all of that. And a couple days later, I was driving back from a work appointment, and all of a sudden, Peaceful Morning Radio starts playing. on Pandora, and I never downloaded this channel,
Oh my gosh.
which was amazing. And I'm like, what is happening here? And then the first song was Joy in the Morning. And the second song is Do Not Fear, You Are Blessed, a Christian song. I
Oh
grew up
my.
Catholic.
Okay.
A friend of mine took me, who I hadn't seen in 3 years, to her Christian church the day after Christmas for a service. And I started to see like fruits of spirit versus, ego. And I was looking at, oh my gosh, like all the stuff that my boyfriend was sitting in.
Yeah.
Like I was pulled out of that during my leave of absence, finding balance in my life. And then I got dragged right back into all of that. I don't want that.
Right.
So I realized like I want peace. So with it all came my faith, and I became this woman who's walked forward in this continuous faith and trust, knowing that everything's going to work out, that I'm meant to step into something to change lives, especially women's lives. And this is what's happening now.
That's
So
amazing. So had you already
powerful.
left your medical sales job at that point when when this was happening?
No, so that happened beginning of 2022 with my spiritual awakening. So
Okay.
I ended up in another medical sales company and dealt with a narcissistic manager
Oh geez.
who had hired me and then was throwing me under the bus when COVID hit pretty quickly. And I ended up getting moved to another piece in the company, just another role. And it was a good fit. Interestingly enough, with this manager who I connected with, and really like he was building me back up. Oh geez, now I get it. Yeah, he was building me back up, and I needed him at the time. Interestingly enough, he was the manager that was tearing me back down
Oh
very
geez.
recently when I quit my job.
Oh
I
geez.
didn't really realize that, but I knew he was narcissistic as of recently,
Uh-huh.
but I didn't realize, yeah, that makes a lot of sense now. Of course, he wanted to help me and then later tear me down. That makes a lot of sense. But in
Yeah.
between, for 2.5 years, I had the most amazing manager of my life who was spiritually awakened in high school and just centered, just peaceful,
Mm-hmm.
just amazing, amazing person in every way. And he was there for me through my spiritual awakening, through all those experiences. I could talk to him about anything and everything, and I still talk to him. So it's pretty incredible, when someone like that is brought into your life. And
Right.
I started to see, like, okay, like, look at what God's done in my life. I look at the people and all of this. And I grew up Catholic and
Mm-hmm.
was non practicing for a very long time. So all of a sudden to connect with Christianity and being pulled into some of this
Right.
was very, very different. I didn't know I could have a personal relationship, with God's spirit and all of
Right.
that.
Right. And so when did you decide that you wanted to help women just like you and start coaching?
Well, what happened was early 2022. I know not a lot of time has gone by. It's crazy from since this all started, right?
Right. Right.
From my spiritual awakening. But early 2022, like right when that all happened, I was guided to a local church, the one that I went to that service at, to
Uh-huh.
singles ministry. And I was guided to help people open their hearts, realize their worth and what they truly deserve in life, to build their self confidence. And I was asked to coach, table lead
Oh, nice.
right away. And I'm like, I haven't even been in a Christian church, but I
Right.
knew everything I learned in relationship with my relationship coaches had
Right.
taught me what I needed to know. And then also like God's spirit giving me the messages through me kind of
Right.
thing,
Right.
which I was experiencing and was kind of like, okay, wow, this is all really happening. It was powerful.
That's really amazing.
Yeah.
And so you went from table leading, and did that really resonate with you and like really fill you up and be like, I want to do more of this?
Yes, with the coaching. And so then I ended up working with the relationship course that they were teaching for
Oh,
11 weeks there. So I got to help table lead coach that. And I was at a table with everybody who was divorced with grown kids. And I just knew I was at the right table.
wow.
And people respected me. They heard me. They trusted, God's spirit was speaking through me
Uh-huh.
and that I was supposed to be there. So that felt really good.
Yeah.
And after that, I created with a couple of friends of mine Intuitive Faith Abundant Living, which turned into something else later. But that was a Facebook group to help people with spirituality and create the life that they deserve, walking forward in faith and trust.
Right.
So everything was a stepping stone. I did a lot of individual coaching, last year with people. I did a lot of pro bono stuff. I wasn't starting my business. I was
Uh-huh.
just, learning, hey, like I'm here to do this. And I
Right.
just trusted and followed that guidance. And then when I quit my job, late April this year, I ended up walking into all of that. I had to create my business in a week and a half.
Oh my
And I was
goodness.
like, what? I know the name of my business. And now you want me to create this in a week and a half.
Right.
I'm like thinking, are you crazy? But I know I had to. I knew there's a timing piece to it, and I
Uh-huh.
had to follow that guidance. So I did. And sure enough, I connected with somebody who had joined my intuitive faith group, and I knew I was supposed to. I joined that network of his, and I was able to do all these things. Like it all, I did an interview and about my business and then about my story. And
Wow.
that brought me further on that path. So, and then I was supposed to be coaching through that whole group that got formed, but it turns out God had an even bigger plan that I'm supposed to create my own network and coach through my own network and
That's
can cross
amazing.
pollinate. But this is, what I meant to do. And some of the people I met there are going to be connected on this path.
That's amazing.
I
And
know.
I really love that too. The people I have met just saying yes to doing this podcast, the people I have met, I never would have met. When you say that, yes, so many things can happen. And do you coach everybody, or is it there a spiritual component if you want it to be, or it doesn't have to be necessarily?
Yeah, I can coach everybody.
Okay.
It doesn't matter to me. As long as you're coachable and you're open and you want to
Yes.
grow, you can
Yes.
be male, female,
Right.
I'm just open to all of it. Religious, not religious,
Right.
spiritual, not just
I think the
open to it
key I think the key you said was you have to be open, right? So
to be
that's you,
open.
and that's usually when we're usually open when we feel like we're ready for something, So the premise of your coaching is to build the life. Tell me the way you said it. You've said it a couple times.
Yeah. I want to help women or help people heal their hearts so that they can open them fully to, build their self confidence, to find their
Mm-hmm.
self worth, to grow their self love so that they can walk forward to create the life they truly desire, to walk into that beautiful,
Yes.
blessed life.
Yes. That is amazing. And that's the thing, is we really have to work on that self-esteem. That is such a big component. That's a lot to go through. I imagine like a machete, going through.
Yeah.
If you aren't working on that part, it's really, I think it's really hard. I have another friend who does some amazing coaching, and I know we spend a lot of time talking about what are your dreams and why, and then working on that, right, and working on
Yeah.
my past and things like that, and why we're making the choices, or why we've made the choices that we've made, which is what we were talking about today, and what got you to this place.
Yeah, it's amazing, this journey. I mean, I just, my spiritual awakening, my life all changed. I
Yeah.
started to see the world so differently. I started to see Everything looked more vibrant, colors. I just started to pay attention to the whole world. And part of it, my ex's 3-year-old daughter, just seeing that life through her eyes,
Yeah.
that fresh set of eyes, I feel like started awakening me to all of that
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
And it was beautiful. It was all such a gift. And I've seen all these tough experiences as gifts to move
Yeah.
me forward to where I'm meant to be, to do what I'm supposed to do now,
Yeah.
stepping into this, huge soul mission calling
Right.
to really empower women. But I want to do it so they, it's not about toughening you up, it's
Right.
about finding that femininity in there too and
Hmm.
connecting with that, being
Hmm.
able to receive so much good in your life,
Right.
just being able to call all of that in because you know that you're worthy and deserve it. And
Hmm.
that takes that feminine energy to
Right.
do that.
Right. And that's the biggest thing is knowing that we're worth it,
Yes.
that we're worthy for it, and that's the biggest thing. That's why it's been such a journey for me, even with the podcast and even just healing this last year. It's like, that's why I'm
Yeah.
going to keep on healing because I want the things that come to me, like you
Yes.
said, I want to feel worthy and valuable and all those things, which I do, preach, quote unquote, preach on. And, but it's just something that that I feel like I still want to continue working on. That's for sure. So
Yeah.
we're gonna put a bunch of information in the notes. We talked about so many things. And I know when I
Yes.
go back, we're gonna end up because I want to put stuff in there. We've talked about the 5 love languages, and I've actually talked about it on other episodes, but I will put it in there because if people don't know about the 5 love languages, they're really helpful. They're really good to know what your language, love language is, and also what your partner's is. And also he also talks about teenagers and stuff like that. It's a great way to go through this world so that you don't think, well, they're not giving me what I need, but it might look different, from somebody else's point of view. And you talked about lots of things, and I'm not going to remember them all. I didn't want to take notes, so when I go back and listen to the
Yeah.
episode, I will definitely put that in the resources. Was there anything else that you wanted to talk about today before we say goodbye?
Just that, I mean, any one of you are capable of growing and finding your voice, being able to stand in your highest personal power. I mean, you heard my story today and you can see
Yeah.
everything I've been through. And now I'm, starting to lead a women's movement here.
Yes.
It's huge. It's not something I ever thought I'd be doing. And I still, after everything, I know that my person is out there. I know that he's coming
Mhm.
in shortly and that I deserve that true love, respect,
Yeah.
someone who's going to support me and love me, the way I deserve to be loved.
Yes.
And it's happening. So it'll be exciting to celebrate it when it does. So it's all about believing it
Yes.
and then you'll see it and just trusting in that perfect, right, divine timing. Everything comes together at just the right moment. And it may not make any sense at the time, trust
Right.
me,
Right.
but eventually the pieces start to go together and you start to see this puzzle
Yeah.
coming together so beautifully and like, oh, this is why my life has, gone in this direction and this is,
Right.
you know, where I'm headed. And it's beautiful, walking into this beautiful, blessed life, giving up all of what I knew. And I'm also so blessed. My parents have been so incredibly supportive through all this. They both
That's
had very
awesome.
traditional careers and they fully support me with all of this. And it's just so nice to have their, emotional support with it.
Yes. That is a blessing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for encouraging us. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for sharing your story
You're
today. My
welcome.
gosh, it was really encouraging and I resonated with it. And if it resonated with you, there will be some posts on social media about Jennifer, and I would love for you to go um, and just comment on that and tell us if it resonated with you. And all the information on how to get a hold of Jennifer will be in the show notes, so you can do some coaching with her if you feel like you need to move forward, to build the life that you want to build, the life
Yeah.
that you're dreaming of. So thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you.
You're welcome. I really appreciate you too. And everyone's welcome to join my group. So if
Oh,
it resonates,
yes.
yes,
That will be there in the comments as well. So that'll be awesome. Well,
great.
I appreciate it, and we will talk to you guys next time. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.